Hello and welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is Susan Ingram, lawyer mediator. Hello and welcome for being on the show.
Thank you.
Okay, lawyer mediator, lawyer. Tell me something though. There's something unique about the population you serve.
Yes,
and tell us, and let's go over that.
Yes, so you're referring to elder care.
Yes, I am.
And elder lawyers. So first of all, mediators are neutral people that help facilitate conversations between others. So in this area with elders, we come in and assist a family that consists of, it could be an older parent as well as older, adult siblings.
Okay. So you actually attempt to help resolve family conflict that's centered around perhaps the care and treatment of the older parent.
Yes.
Right, or and it could cover. It could be between siblings and siblings.
Yes.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and brothers. It could be between sibling and the older person. It could be between the older parent and his second wife, or between the birth mother, the second husband. It covers a variety of things.
It's all sorts of potential.
Right, and gee, your business must be booming because the elder people are living longer and longer.
Yeah, well, baby boomers are.
Right, so there's much more potential.
Yes.
So tell me something. You're called in lots of times to resolve long-standing family disputes or family disentanglements.
Yes.
How do you start? Give us a small nutshell of how you get going.
Okay, so one person would give me a call, whoever's taken this on initially in the family, and would say we have an issue with our, let's say, our parents, and maybe there are 3 or 4 siblings, adult siblings, and let's say the issue might be our parent is the father's memory is failing, and he's still driving the car, and we know it's dangerous. How do we take away the keys? Which is an issue that definitely comes up,
I'm sure,
at times. So I speak a little bit with that person who's been designated, and then I say, who do you think should be at this meeting that you want to have to discuss and resolve this issue?
Whether dad should keep on driving, or grandpa should keep on driving.
Now, ideally, dad would be there. You'd want the parent, if at all possible, to be there because it's about them.
Right.
But then there'd be the other siblings, and maybe a grandchild is involved
also.
How
do you get started?
So I would call the others and initially speak with them on the phone.
Privately?
Yes, privately, and it is a private, confidential conversation, so I won't repeat anything that they don't want repeated. But at least that helps me get the setup.
So you know the background.
Right. You need the background because this could be a whole group of people who come together.
So we want to move forward. So you have to get the background privately, and then you call the meeting.
Yes, convene the meeting.
Okay, fine. Now, from that moment in time, how do you start?
Then you have everybody go around, and for about 5 minutes or so, this is typically what I would do, and just make a statement of where they're hoping to go, or what they're hoping to happen that day.
Is Dad there too, the person that you're talking about?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So they all, and you even start with Dad, if it's about Dad, and so everybody's spoken.
So he says, you ask him, do you think that you are capable of driving? And he says yes, and then where do you go?
No, you don't ask yes, no questions.
Oh, you don't ask. Okay. So
that's not what a mediator does. Okay.
So give me a sense of what kinds of things you might ask.
Right. So you're helping them talk. So you're saying, well, what would be not necessarily? Let's say there were 6 of them around the table, which is a lot.
Okay.
So what would be not necessarily your ideal position, but what would be something that all of you could live with? So then you're getting them to talk. The idea is you're a facilitator, the mediator
getting them to talk to each other.
Yes, start to talk to each other and get below just the adamant, oh no, I can drive, don't be ridiculous, or
no, we can't.
Exactly. And you're getting them to describe what's underneath that, what need they have. Maybe there's concern about the parent's security,
Right.
So once you get at those deeper issues, things begin to open up for them.
Yeah, I can see how some of that would work, but I'm wondering how things work, like financial, mom or dad. If a person can't drive, memory is failing. Maybe there are other issues too, like can that person pay their bills honestly,
right. Yes.
or can that person manage their own pill taking, or could that person manage seeing the doctors regularly?
Yes.
It could be usually it's one thing, can be several issues.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
What's the most difficult to get beyond?
You know, all of them can be difficult. Even the keys, you think that's one little issue,
Yeah.
but it isn't, as you say. There's much more to it
But it's
than
also,
that.
I think, isn't it also about asking the person to willingly give up control? The person who's
Yes.
the elder in the family?
Yes, they ultimately have to. But what you're doing is hopefully fashioning a solution. You're problem solving. Everybody there is problem solving, and not to be polarized. And that's
Right.
the.
So can you then arrive at some kind of compromise?
You can often, yes. Sometimes you can't. You can't help it. You know, people are very set in their ways. But a lot of times you can arrive at a compromise that's acceptable to everyone or almost
Well,
everybody.
how much, Susan, do you factor in the person's own opinion about himself or herself?
You mean, let's say, the parents?
If we're talking about elder care, let's just say of the older one in the family.
Yes.
How important? What value do you give that own person's opinion?
Well, you give a decent amount of value, but for instance, if that person's memory is failing, or if they really are very feeble and need assistance, it's clear from all the conversations that I've had with the siblings, and I can see even...
And you can see with your own eyes.
Exactly. The parent is there, and I can see, I take that into account because I need to help move this along. Remember, the mediation, of course, it's centering on the elder person, but it's a family mediation. It involves all of the members. They're all concerned, and they're coming to the table.
I want to ask you something. We read and hear so often about family conflicts. Families are a pot brewing that very often
Yes.
can overflow. How is it that someone who is a mediator, as you are, definitely a mediator, what special tools do you have in your bag to bring families together and compromise when so much of what goes on in families doesn't get compromised?
Right. I'm not in that family. I'm apart from it. Good mediators have to be empathic. But they can't be too empathic. They've got to also do their job, which is help to guide these people. So where they get very emotional and upset, I'm not going to. But I am going to let them air some of that. It's not that they have to be quiet and not erupt. That's helpful
So
sometimes.
you don't set down dogma.
No. I mean, there are certain rules. Let's say you don't want a bad language, let's say, or certain things.
So you have certain ground rules.
Yes, and the people there can help set those rules. Also, you ask them, what rules do you think would be helpful?
How successful are you in these mediations, Susan?
If I had to pull out a percentage, I'd say probably 70 to 75% of the time.
Right.
They reach agreement, yes, and they're happy.
So you
with the
work under
agreement.
this umbrella of elder care mediation.
Yes.
And there are others like you and people. You happen to have. Are all of you who do this mediation lawyers?
No. To be a mediator, you do not have to be a lawyer. You could, for instance, also be a therapist, a
psychiatrist,
mental health
a social
person.
worker. Right.
Sometimes it's helpful because, for instance, if issues come up about, let's say, trusts and estates, or
Yes, yeah.
Wills or stuff like that, I'm not there to give them an opinion as to that, but I certainly understand that world.
Right.
But that's not what I'm doing there. I'm not being a lawyer.
Do you find, Susan, that often the sibling rivalry that starts out being around the elder care, the older member, is really about sibling rivalry one-to-one?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, right.
You're going back to Johnny, who was spoiled, the youngest, and everybody resents him.
Right, or the oldest one who thinks that the burden has fallen unfairly on her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you wind up then mediating between sibling and sibling?
Yes. I mean, you're mediating, absolutely, the relationships between them, okay? And it can be challenging, but it's fascinating, and it can be so rewarding also as you give them tools to open up their conversation and not be stuck.
So it's kind of like giving people just communication tools.
Absolutely.
I mean, do people listen? I mean, so much of what's wrong in families is that before you start listening, you're talking.
Right. Well, and I'm there to make sure that they're listening. And if they're not, I'll even, there are techniques to use. In other words, you've just told me something, and I could say to the other person there, what have you heard? You know, that was just said. And very possibly you'll hear something that's not at all what was said. So then that's clarified. And by me modeling my good listening skills, I'm also helping them. Yeah. And I'm also guiding them.
I always tell my kids, someone told me many years ago, you know, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. And I'm always telling my kids and reminding myself. Yes. But I want to say, do you sometimes find that the older member in the family, the father or the mother or the grandfather, really does have sufficient mental skills, but that person's opinion is being tossed aside just because he's old or just because she's old? Or maybe people have a bad memory in one area but are still very acutely able to take care of their own finances.
Yes. That happens, and it's my job, yeah. I feel, to give that person their voice too.
Yes, they have to. Meeting. I mean, you have to be. I mean, when you go into these, whose advocate are you?
I'm the family's advocate, okay?
Oh, that was a good answer.
Yes. So I'm there, and that's why, because there are so many of them, that's why it's best for me to speak to them in advance, including the parents.
You talk to the parents also?
Yes, right. So everybody who's going to be there, I will speak to. So I'll get an idea. I'll see their interaction at the meeting, and I'll make sure, you know, that's part of my job, to make sure that parent, if you're speaking about the parent, you know, has a voice as well.
Because you know, there is a tendency in our society, I hope that it's somewhat diminishing, we only have 1 minute left, to somehow discard the opinion of somebody that's old.
Yes. Well, that's a way, if mediation is handled properly, that's a way to make sure that the parent has their voice as well as the other members.
Right. And of course, your fee is paid for by the family. So right. I think sometimes when people have to pay for something, they pay more attention to it.
Yes.
Right. So
yeah.
in sum, what's the key? What is the first thing? What's the key to getting some of these really tough issues resolved?
To have everybody come together, first of all, you've got to convene them, which can be a challenge when you have so many. If some live far away, then you bring them from.
First off, to get them together, and
right.
then to teach them to
listen, and be receptive. And it's amazing how things can change. Then.
All right. Well, I'm happy. I like to end on a good end. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
I'm Judith West. You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. Our guest was Susan Ingram, lawyer mediator, particularly for elder care. Thanks for watching.